Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. This is
Shalom,
Krishna Prita.
shalom.
Thank you so
Good to
much.
see you.
Thank you so much for joining, Prabhu. So yes, the students are still coming, Prabhu. So
Okay.
should I wait or should I just introduce you?
We can wait. I'm not rushed here.
So sorry, Prabhuji.
Yeah. No problem. Let me test. Will I be able to share my screen? Let's see, send request.
I have made you the co-host, Prabhu.
Okay, excellent. Okay. So let's just see if I can share my screen. Yeah, okay. Very good. Okay. Okay. So these are all the devotees in Pakistan. What, in a particular city?
They all are from different cities. Somebody is from Hyderabad, somebody is from Karachi, somebody is from
Okay.
Sakkar. So the mixture of cities, Prabhu.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
Okay, so let me introduce our beloved Karur Prabhu. So, Hare Krishna, dear all students. Please accept my humble obeisances, all glory to Srila Prabhupada. So, it is our rare fortunate today that we are welcoming among us the beloved disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and we are having His Grace Garuda Das Prabhu, who is the most senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And I just want to share one thing that once Ramanand Raya asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that what is the greatest fortune or the auspiciousness of like beneficial thing for a person. And then Mahaprabhu replied that to get association of a Krishna's beloved devotees is the greatest auspiciousness for a devotee, for a person. So we are like we are feeling so privileged and honored that we are having Krishna devotee here, the exalted devotee, Garud Prabhu. He's a doctor, and Prabhuji is like for nearly 5 decades, he's practicing and sharing Krishna consciousness. Prabhuji has received both Harinam and Brahmanical initiation directly from Srila Prabhupada and empowered directly by his spiritual master. Prabhuji has entered the academic world and went on to achieve 3 master's degree and a PhD in comparative religion from Harvard University. And Prabhuji is the first devotee scholar who hold a university professorship and first to publish authoritative works on Krishna consciousness with world class academic and trade publishers. And he has thus opened the door of Srila Prabhupada's teachings to the countless seekers of scholarly world in the scholarly world. So over the years, Garuda Prabhu has guided younger devotee scholars, served as a consultant for ISKCON leadership, counseled hundreds of devotees, and remained closely connected to BBT and Bhaktivedanta Institute. And he's still contributing to major project, and he's contributing since early 1980s. And Prabhuji has been invited to lecture worldwide at ISKCON temple, yoga centers, universities, and prestigious institutions such as Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. And Prabhuji has done a lot of broadcast And a lot of devotees here has seen and heard the podcast of Prabhuji's on YouTube. And Prabhuji has spoken like dozens of times. His dedication and brilliance have earned him the honorary title of Kaviraj among his god brothers directly by Srila Prabhupada. And I was reading Prabhuji one of your book some days before, Bhagavad Gita, I think the secret song of Krishna, something like that. And I went through the book and it was completely like the poetic way. So now I got it why Srila Prabhupada gave you the title Kaviraj. So you are it's a quality of a devotee that they are the one quality of devotee that they are poetic. So I can understand from your book that. And at last, I just want to say, uh, so dear devotees, we are very blessed to receive the association of a scholar, of a counselor, of a teacher, and above all, a lifelong servant of Srila Prabhupada. So, with folded hands and deep gratitude, let us warmly welcome His great Garuda Das Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for giving your association, for giving your valuable time, and for blessing us. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. It's over to you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Well, it is a privilege to be here on this side of the world, talking to all of you on the other side of the world. And my pranams to all of you. And thank you so much, Krishna Priya, for making this arrangement. And let me start just with a small invocation. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. The universe embraces each one of us, yet we can be so blinded by darkness. Because our true teachers guide us with the light of pure knowledge, our eyes can be opened to the sweetness and the power of illumination. Therefore, let us bow down before those who guide us on our spiritual path. Hare Krishna. Okay, so I think we discussed two things that I would talk about today. One is my background, some anecdotes, my interactions with Srila Prabhupada, and then perhaps talk about the secret messages in the Bhagavad Gita. So first, and of course, this is informal. If anyone has any questions, they can put them in the chat, or I'll open up at certain intervals for any comments or questions, if that's all right. Okay, that works? Okay, good. Well, first of all, let me share my screen just to show you three pictures of me with Srila Prabhupada. I don't think I have many pictures to show of me with Prabhupada, but here are a few. So you may not recognize me in this picture, but I'm the fellow right here. So as the aging process loves to get to all of us, there I am as a 21, 22-year-old young man, and then of course you have here in this Zoom box the much later picture of me. So yeah, this is in Mayapur. I am walking here in a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada in 1974. This was during the first major Mayapur festival, as you know, we have had ever since. Devotees from all around the world have been coming to Mayapur since 1974. And all that was really around at that time was the Chandrodaya Mandir. So because I'm a little hard to pick out of the crowd, I put a little circle around me right there. Of course, I know all these devotees here, Jayapataka, Bhavananda, Rupanuga, Brahmananda. I forgot his name, this sannyasi, but I don't think he's any longer around. And so on. So anyway, you see in the background here, this building, the Chandrodaya Mandir, is the only building standing at the time, and it was not even completed. It was not finished. So the first day when we arrived, I had not even seen Srila Prabhupada yet, because it was early in the morning that we had arrived. And they immediately asked us, as we put our bags down into the areas in which we would stay. I was on the fourth floor. That was to be Prabhupada's quarters. But it was just cement, raw cement floor and cement dust everywhere. And I remember sleeping in a pile of cement dust. Okay? So this was my first accommodation received in Mayapur. So the first day, the manager, one of the managers of the Chandrodaya Mandir, came and asked all of us if any of us would volunteer for any seva, any service around the temple. And I raised my hand, and they said, he said, okay, you can sweep the stairs going up to the fourth floor. So, honestly, I was not used to sweeping floors. Okay, I kind of grew up in a rather privileged family, and I never swept floors. I mean, I didn't know what that was about. So I started at the bottom floor and started sweeping, and realized that when you sweep, dust goes down. So I said, okay, this makes sense. I should go to the top floor and then sweep the steps down. Now, these steps would go from the top floor midway down to a landing, and then down to the third floor. And then from the third floor down to a landing, and then down to the second floor. Prabhupada was staying on the second floor. So I had been sweeping from the fourth floor all the way down to the second floor, and then past the second floor to the landing that would then lead to the first floor. By the time I got to the landing on between the second floor and the first floor, I had a pile of dust and debris and building, just a mess. And it covered pretty much the whole landing on which I was now standing. And suddenly someone comes around the corner on the second floor saying, Prabhupada is coming, Prabhupada is coming. And I'm going, oh my gosh, how am I going to deal with this? I have all this trash and cement dust and all this debris covering the whole landing, which I had not, gathered up and thrown out yet. So I'm getting a little frantic and wondering what to do. And suddenly, appearing in that hallway opening to the second floor and coming out to the stairs were the dandas of the sannyasis accompanying Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada started walking down the stairs, and I just froze. I mean, I didn't know what to do. This was the most embarrassing thing. I made a mess on the landing, and I sort of shrugged myself, sort of shrank into the corner of the landing, and was holding the broomstick in my arms as if it was a dunda, honestly. And that was probably the closest I'll ever get to a dunda in my arms, is a broomstick. So, and Prabhupada could see how absolutely fearful I was that he would be coming down the steps into my pile of debris. And he smiled at me, the biggest smile you could possibly imagine. I think he was amused at my state of fright that he would be stepping into this pile of debris. But on the debris he came, and I watched his lotus feet just step in the debris, and the devotees, the several devotees with him, they were also stepping, and Prabhupada went right by me, and went and continued on down the stairs. I had noticed that there was one footprint. Debris gets messed around, and and you can't really discern much in debris. But I noticed that one footstep that Prabhupada took in the debris was uncontaminated, or was crushed by other footsteps. And so when Prabhupada went down the stairs, and the devotees went down with him, I got down and rubbed my head in that footstep. And then I finally knew what it meant to take the dust of the lotus feet of the pure devotee. And much dust there was. So that was my first encounter with Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur that year. Now, I had seen Prabhupada earlier in New York City, but this was a very close encounter with Srila Prabhupada. And I was with Prabhupada for 2 weeks, 2 whole weeks in Mayapur, and 2 whole weeks in Vrindavan. And one of the reasons I was able to go on morning walks with Prabhupada and go to classes every single morning and evening during this Gaur Purnima festival is because most of the devotees who came, and there were several hundred, got sick. They got sick because the so-called prasadam was not prasadam. They were cooking for the devotees in tents with little Bengali boys crushing potatoes under their feet on the ground. Now, I learned that that's what they were doing on the first day. So I decided I would only drink dab juice, coconut water, and those little bananas. They have those little bananas in Mayapur. And that's why I did not get sick. So every morning, there were only 12 of us attending class. It was very intimate. And of course, Prabhupada was disturbed, I found out later, that so many devotees were sick because of this irresponsible kind of meal preparation for the devotees, and the hazards of health hazards coming from those meals I was able to avoid, because I found out on that very first day what they were doing to prepare the meals, and I avoided it. And in so doing, I got to go to class very early with Prabhupada, and many morning walks. And when we all arrived in Vrindavan, the Krishna Balaram temple was nothing but brick columns and just dirt. Nothing. There was nothing there, except Prabhupada's room was already built, and that's where Prabhupada stayed. So we didn't have a place to stay at the temple site. So we were down the road toward the village Vrindavan. We stayed at Fogal Ashram. And Fogal Ashram was a very nice place. It was open to the sky. It had an atrium, which opened to the sky. And then there were rooms surrounding the opening, the garden, if you would. Picture this. And Prabhupada would walk down to Fogal Ashram every morning and every evening to give class. And one morning, again, there were only 12 of us sitting in class. And it was very dark out. So it was outside, different than the Chandrodya Mandir, where we were inside. This was outside. It was very dark. And I was very excited to hear Prabhupada's lecture, as usual. And Prabhupada was lecturing away. He was talking and speaking from Bhagavad. And suddenly he turns to Brahmananda, who was on his left. He said, and points over to me, Prabhupada points over to me and says, what is he doing? And Brahmananda looks over in my direction and he said, oh, Prabhupada, he is sleeping. I'm thinking, I'm sleeping? What? Am I dreaming that I'm awake in class, but in reality, I'm really sleeping? And Prabhupada said, he is sleeping? And Brahmananda said, yes, he is sleeping, Prabhupada. He said, go over to him and tell him to leave. I mean, my goodness, So Brahmananda is a fellow whom I became a good friend, with whom I became very good friends later on, in several years later. But I didn't know him. He didn't know me. He came over, big Brahmananda, and he was coming right toward me. And then suddenly he shook the shoulder of the devotee sitting right next to me, sort of in front of me. So it wasn't I that was falling asleep. It turns out that it was the devotee next to me. But it really shook me up because I thought, it was dark. You couldn't see very clearly. I thought Prabhupada was pointing to me. So I still took it as a lesson that when hearing Shastra and hearing an exposition on Shastra, that I would never, ever fall asleep or doze off during such classes, even when there was much austerity, much tapas, which back in those days, all of us engaged in, because we did everything. There wasn't anything that we didn't do back in those days, because there weren't that many devotees, and we had to do everything, whether it be cleaning the temple, building things for the temple, doing the deity worship in the temple, distributing books from the temple, managing the devotees in the temple, greeting guests, and so everything. We did everything. Cooking for the deities, cooking for the Sunday feasts, everything. We did everything. The only thing I'd never learned how to do is play mridanga. This is my great misfortune. I never learned how to play mridanga. So I stand before you mridanga-less. No mridanga playing. Anyway, there were many instances in which I was very fortunate to be able to sit in Prabhupada's room when he came to Philadelphia in 1975. I built several asanas for Prabhupada, and I was, for hours, I would be sitting just a few feet away from Prabhupada at his desk. So those were wonderful, wonderful times that are etched indelibly in my heart and in my mind. And then just to wind up here, I can tell you that the way the academic journey started, because back then when a devotee would be quitting school to become a bhakta, this was considered glorious because one was leaving the mundane world of education, the slaughterhouse, as Prabhupada would call mundane education, the slaughterhouse. This was much appreciated by the devotees back in the early days. I had quit school. I had gone to Johns Hopkins University as an undergraduate. I actually began reading Bhagavad Gita when I was 14 years old, before I even knew about Srila Prabhupada. I started practicing yoga and Ashtanga yoga and meditational yoga very seriously at the age of 14, to the point where I actually asked my parents, very educated parents, I asked my parents if I could drop out of high school. This is every parent's nightmare. No parent wants to hear their kid dropping out of school, because what will their future be? So they asked me, what will I do all day? I said, I will be chanting mantras, I'll be meditating, and I'll be reading Bhagavad Gita, because I'm learning more from the reading Bhagavad Gita than I am from high school. They said, okay, we trust that you know what you're doing. And they said, well, what about college? And I said, if college is supposed to happen, it will happen. Well, it did happen. It happened, you know, oh, I realize I've kept this on share this whole time. Might as well show the other picture. Here you can see the yoga pit here in the background. You can see that. And then if you can find me, I'm right here. You see that little head in the background? That is little old me. Okay. Um, I was not a big fellow, you know, always pushing my way up to the front, but neither was Satsrup. There's Satsrup in the back with me. He's right here. In fact, I sent him this picture recently. I said, Satsrup Maharaj, there are hundreds of pictures of you with Srila Prabhupada, but there are a few with me, and I found one with you in the back and with me in the back, and you are. So I sent that to him. He enjoyed it very much because we're old friends. In any case, taking this off of share. Here we go. In any case, Prabhupada decided he wanted to establish in Mayapur a Bhagavata university where devotees could actually get doctorates in Bhagavat studies. And so Ravindra Swarup, who was in the Philadelphia temple at the time, managing it, who was just finishing his doctorate. You see, the devotees who had doctorates back in those days were either just finishing their doctorates or they came with doctorates. Madhava, the three main members of the Bhaktivedanta Institute was Madhava, who already had his doctorate, Swarup Damodar, who headed up the Bhaktivedanta Institute, was just finishing his doctorate, I think in biochemistry, at University of California, Irvine. And then there was Sadaputta, who got his doctorate in mathematics from Cornell University. So Swarup Damodar took an interest in me, and Ravindra Swarup was also finishing his doctorate in philosophy of religion. So Ravindra Swarup was appointed to be the head of the Bhagavat University in Mayapur, and Jayapataka and Prabhupada were arranging for this. And so Ravindra Swarup said, why don't you've got 1 year left in your undergraduate work. You know, you dropped out to join the ashram, but you only have 1 more year left to complete. Why don't you go back and complete it? So I said, okay. And I then I didn't go back to Johns Hopkins, but I went to American University in Washington, D.C. Halfway through the semester, I learned that Jayapataka or Prabhupada, we never found out, you know, who decided this, but the Bhagavata College, or Bhagavata University was canceled. The idea was canceled. So Ravindra was not going over there, and neither was I once I finished my BA. So then I'm wondering, why did Krishna put me in this, you know, bachelor's, finish my college work, if I'm not going to end up in Mayapur? And at that time, Prabhupada was reproducing, or I should say producing, 1 volume every 2 weeks. The BBT was producing 1 volume of the Chaitanya Charitamrita consecutively. So 17 volumes, you know, it came out. You know, it was extraordinary. And, you know, over 34 weeks, each of these volumes came out from the BBT. And a devotee and I would sneak out into the hallway of the ashram every night with our flashlights, and we would read each volume that was coming out. Sometimes we'd stay up till like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and of course we'd be right up for Mangalarti, a little tired, but we did it because it was so energizing to read these fresh revelations from Prabhupada in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is a very exciting time. Very exciting time. So I read there that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas. He accepted the renounced order of sannyasa for the purpose of gaining the respect and the attention of intellectual persons. And I said, well, maybe, just maybe, that's what Prabhupada wants. And Prabhupada did mention that he wanted his scientists to be leading scientists. He wanted excellence in intellectual areas, and he wanted some devotees to be heads of departments of religion one day. So I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking, well, what would happen if I apply to the best universities in America to continue my studies and get a doctorate? So I took a chance, and I applied to the two universities that I really was hopeful for was University of Pennsylvania, which is right there in Philadelphia, and the University of Chicago, who had on its faculty Professor Edward Dimmock. Now, some of you may recall that the original Bhagavad Gita that Prabhupada produced for Macmillan had a foreword. Prabhupada loved Professor Dimmock's foreword to his Bhagavad Gita. He published it in his Bhagavad Gita. So he loved it so much. And I said, well, obviously I should apply to the University of Chicago. So I applied, and I was a little bit, shall we say, one might say a little bit fanatical, okay? So the first line of your statement of purpose, the statement of purpose for a doctoral degree is very important. You have to state what you're going to do, where your studies are going. So what did I say in the very first line? I am an initiated disciple of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder, Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. My studies here would be in further pursuit of the study of the scriptures of this tradition. Now, when I have advised devotees later on to how to enter the academic program that they were interested in, I never advised them to say such a thing. It's too bold. It's too, in many ways, it's sort of crass. You should just state what you're going to be studying, what kind of, line of study or area of inquiry you're going to be pursuing. You get right down to that. But I was so insecure about doing this. I figured if they didn't accept me as a devotee, then I wasn't going to accept them. Okay, so that was my thinking. I wanted to make sure Krishna really knew what I was doing here. So two of the best universities in this country accepted me, and I went off to the University of Chicago. Then the GBC, with whom I'd been working, and also Swarup Damodar with the Bhaktivedanta Institute, they both said, we don't think anyone's ever going to get a doctoral degree from any university, so we think you should just go to Harvard, because Harvard is famous all over the world. I said, but I just got here. They said, you've got to go to Harvard. We don't think anyone else is ever, I think they meant crazy enough to go and get a doctorate. So you need to go to Harvard. And, you don't just go to Harvard, you have to apply, and they have to accept you. And the acceptance rate there is the toughest in the world. Well, it turns out I got in. So the rest is history. On my way to Harvard, Satsarup read my master's thesis, which was on the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And Satsarup said, you have to send this to Prabhupada. This was the summer or spring of 77, the last spring that Prabhupada would spend here on this earthly plane. And so what happened was I did not want to send my master's thesis to Prabhupada because I heard that he was sickly, he was not well, and he was trying to finish the Bhagavatam, and I did not want to interrupt that. So I wrote back to Satsrup and said, I refuse to follow your advice. I'm not going to send it to Prabhupada because of these reasons. And Satsrup wrote back, folks, back then we used to use letters. I don't know if any of you know what a letter is. We didn't have text messages. We didn't have email. We had letters, okay? Letters, the things that you put in an envelope and you put a stamp on it, mails, and it takes several days, maybe a week, okay? So those were the days. So he wrote back saying, Garuda, Prabhupada would be so pleased to see this master's thesis on the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So I insist that you send it to him. I wrote back saying, Swami, I'm not going to send it to Prabhupada. I don't want to bother him with this. Then Satsru wrote back a threatening letter saying, if you don't send it to Prabhupada, I will never write to you again. He literally said this to me, and I was very attached. We had a close relationship back then, and I got really insulted and indignant. I said, fine, don't write to me again. I don't care about your letters, but I did. And so weeks went by, didn't hear anything from Satsrup, and I wrote that nasty letter back to him, and I said, oh God, so this is going to sound silly to all of you. I mainly sent my thesis to Prabhupada with a cover letter of 2 pages explaining what I was doing, only because I missed Satsrup's letters. I mean, interactions with loving devotees is very precious. And even among society of devotees, even that, it's still very precious. So I ended up sending my master's thesis to Prabhupada, who at that time had been in Vrindavan. He went back to Vrindavan. He tried to come west. He came to the Bhaktivedanta Manor, but had to have medical work done because he was very sickly, and then he went back to Vrindavan. So I sent it to Prabhupada in Vrindavan, which took weeks. I mean, it takes weeks to get something. I think they used to use donkeys and maybe a few rickshaws over. I don't know how they delivered the mail back then, but anyway, it finally got to Prabhupada several weeks later, and who happened to be Prabhupada's secretary at the time, because they would rotate quite often at that point, Satsrup was right there. So Satsrup happily handed my dissertation, my thesis, over to Prabhupada, who was on his bed but propped up a bit, and he was reading through my thesis, and Satsrup read my letter to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada simply said, tell him I am pleased that he is teaching on such a high level. And that was the blessing that I got from Srila Prabhupada. So I live with that blessing every day of my life, and here I am, 50 years later, frankly, seeking to fulfill that very appreciation that Prabhupada gave me at the time. So, just to finalize this, am I boring all of you, or is this interesting? It's interesting. Okay.
Yes, it's
It's
interesting
interesting,
to.
Prabhu.
Okay, good. Well, I'll just finish this up by saying that when one finds Guru, and when one connects with Guru and engages in a seva that is pleasing to Guru, miraculous things happen. I mean, truly miraculous things happen. I never thought I would ever be able to qualify to publish with some of the most prestigious and high-level publishers in the world, such as Oxford University Press. In fact, my book just came out from Oxford University Press. The Yoga of Love. It just came out. And I also published with Princeton University Press my doctoral dissertation at Harvard, turned into a book called Dance of Divine Love. It's this book here. And HarperCollins, you mentioned my Bhagavad Gita, The Beloved Lord's Secret Love Song. That was published by HarperCollins, again, a top trade publisher. And Yale University Press right now is waiting for me to produce the first Bhakti commentary on the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali. And Columbia University Press published the very first complete word reference for the Bhagavad Gita. So Columbia University Press has published this. So unimaginable, just miraculous that these publishers have taken such an interest in what I do and what I write, and to this day, they're knocking my door down for more books. Routledge is also asking me to write on the Bhagavad Gita. Countless journals. At this point, I've written over 100 published pieces, book chapters, reviews, professional articles, and about 10 books at this point, edited volumes or co-authored volumes and solely authored volumes. This is evidence of Guru's grace and Krishna's grace. To be able to serve in such powerful ways, it's just been absolutely wonderful. So I'll just stop there to see if there are any comments or questions at this point. I'm probably going on too long about this. Oh, we've got something in the chat here, don't we? Let's see. Oh, please show book again. Which book? I've got several. I have several books here. Which book is being requested? This one? I commissioned this painting by the artist, Kim Waters. It's just a beautiful, beautiful painting of Krishna sending out his call. Okay, this one, Dance of Divine Love, yes. So, okay, why don't we hear from Jaya Tulsi?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances.
My pranams.
Prabhuji, I want to ask, you belong to, in initial days, you belong to some other religion, not like Vaishnavism and all. And when you started, when you joined this community, Vaishnav community and all, what kept you going on? Didn't you have any doubts and all? Am I on the right path and all? Living in such an austere life, coming from a very prestigious background, and you are sweeping, cleaning floors and everything. Did you ever got some doubts and all? Is this right path? Am I on right track or
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's a good question. I started seriously practicing and reading about yoga since I was 13 years old. I grew up in Washington, D.C. I was born in New York City, and my parents moved to Washington, D.C., where my father, he was a medical doctor. He got his doctorate at Duke University, but he was a psychiatrist and a psychoanalyst. Can you imagine being raised by a psychiatrist and a psychoanalyst? Yeah, crazy, so to speak, right? Anyway, my parents were just amazing people. They were so sweet. They were so educated. My mother was a fine art a painter, and she was a poet and a writer, and she had a master's degree in English and from Georgetown University. So she was also she had a love for literature and poetry and so on and so forth. So I really took so much from my parents. Religiously speaking, my parents were not that religious. Really, they weren't really very religious at all. They were just very high-minded and very morally grounded people, and they loved human beings. I grew up on a street that had embassies, and we saw, people from different countries and different races, and my parents delighted in that, and so did I. So when I first heard about yoga, you see, what you need to know is that immigration laws lifted in the US in 1965, literally when Prabhupada stepped off the ship in New York after Boston. Immigration law, Lyndon Johnson, the president at the time, had lifted immigration laws for South Asian immigrants. And because of that, people like Prabhupada and other teachers of yoga were coming over to the US, and they all came through Washington, D.C. Now, Prabhupada came to Washington, D.C. much later, but other yoga teachers would come through Washington, D.C., and I would attend all of them. I would meet all of them. I would practice with all of them. And but I went to a bookstore in downtown Washington, D.C., even before I had my driver's license. I would take the bus downtown, and I would sit in the aisle where philosophy, where Bhagavad Gita and different sacred Sanskrit texts had been translated. I would sit there and read all day long. And then at the end of the day, when the store was closing, I would buy a book. And I became a vegetarian very strictly at age 14. It became extremely obvious to me that if you participate directly or indirectly in the suffering of other sentient beings, that you cannot hope to be truly finding oneself and finding true happiness. It made total sense to me. I knew no one who was vegetarian. No one back then was vegetarian. This was all on my own and from my reading. And then at 15 years of age, I was learning so much from my own reading that I wanted to quit high school, and that's how that happened. So I have to tell you that I've been on a sort of steady path since 13, and I never looked back. No, it was just something I just plowed ahead with, and I never turned back. And when I finally met Srila Prabhupada, what you don't know is that when I was 18, I had 5 older friends who were all interested in Eastern philosophy. They invited me to go to India with them when I was 18. They were all like 20 and 21, 22. And I told my parents I wanted to go to India with them. They were interested in other famous people that I frankly was not interested in. I wanted Krishna because I had read the Bhagavad Gita. I wanted to go to the land of Krishna. So I actually separated from my 5 friends and went off. I turned 19 that summer. And after my birthday, I decided to go up north to Vrindavan because I heard that Vrindavan was Krishna's place, Krishna's land. So I went to Delhi, I went to Mumbai, then I flew up to Delhi, then I didn't even want to get a hotel in Delhi. I just wanted to get on a train. I heard you have to go to get a train to Mathura, and then you take a bus or rickshaw or tanga into Vrindavan. So I took a train, and one thing you need to know is that back then I was extremely skinny. I'm in my fat state right now, and I'm not that fat, but I was so skinny, uh, and despite how thin I was, uh, I didn't have to hold on to anything on the train. It was completely packed and crowded. I was standing up, and I didn't have to hold on to anything because it was so crowded. So I managed to ask a gentleman on the train who knew English, because everyone there, practically no one there, knew English at the time. I said, sir, is this train always so crowded? He said, no, no, this is the most special day of the year. It is Sri Krishna Janmashtami. Well, I recognized the word Krishna, but I did not recognize the word Janmashtami. So I said, can you explain? He said, this is the celebration of Krishna's appearance in this world so many years ago. And so this is the holiest day of the year. So I happened to land in Vrindavan on Janmashtami. You know, this was amazing. But Krishna knew I still had some residual desires for Ashtanga Yoga. So he got me involved with a very powerful yogi that I just happened across. And I traveled. Now, he wanted to initiate me. He offered to initiate me. And I figured this could be my ticket to liberation. I said, of course. And I had long hair and a beard back in the day. Let me see if I can find a picture. You would be very amused to see this picture of me. Let's see here. Anyway, I had long hair and a beard, and I was coming before this very powerful yogi and guru who, let's see, I can't find it here. It's a pretty funny picture. I think you'd enjoy it. Anyway, he told me that I would have to shave my head and my beard. And I said, no problem. Again, if this is my ticket to salvation, I'm willing to shave it all off. Okay. And there was a lot to shave off. I will admit. Let's see here. I want to amuse all of you. Let's see what we've got here. Do I have the picture? It's somewhere here. In any case, I went into Vrindavan town, and no one spoke English, so I had to explain. I wanted to, all to take it off, and I said to this yogi, this powerful yogi, so I hear that you're supposed to leave a little ponytail in the back if you're a devotee of Krishna. He said, doesn't matter. Well, that disturbed me because I wanted to be a devotee of Krishna. So I did leave a shikha. I left a shikha. I didn't even know it was called a shikha, but I left one because I heard that that's what Krishna devotees look like. That's what you're supposed to have. So I left that on the back of my head and then appeared before, oh yes, here it is. Okay, so I'll show all of you here. Okay. So I insisted on, leaving that there, and there I am. you believe it? All of that came off. Okay, all that hair, all okay. So now look, I don't want you to look at this too long. Okay, so let's get rid of that. That's fine. There we go. Okay, so there I am in this barber uh, with avalanches of hair falling off as he's cutting the hair, and then taking a razor, up and down this belt, I guess, to sharpen it, and just wets my hair. No soap, no nothing. It starts scraping off, And this is how I, started my life as a Krishna Bhakta, sort of officially on some external sense. But then I ended up leaving him after the end of the summer, and I said, I need a guru who will give me Krishna. And 3 blocks from where I lived in Baltimore, where Johns Hopkins University is, I learned that there is a Krishna temple 3 blocks away. I said, oh my gosh, I can walk there. So I walked there during the middle of the day. I knocked on the door, and a devotee, later to be known as Pararajni, a disciple of Prabhupada, but she was Bhaktin Patty. She opened the door and she said, oh, Haribol Prabhu, where are you from? Now, I didn't understand Haribol or Prabhu. Okay, I was a little startled, and I said, well, I just came back from Vrindavan. She said, oh, New Vrindavan? I said, New Vrindavan. I said, I know of a New Delhi, but I don't know of a New Vrindavan. She said, Vrindavan, India, Vrindavan. I said, well, yeah, where else is there a Vrindavan? And she shut the door. And I thought maybe she got scared of me. I don't know. But she ran to get the temple president. And the temple president came and he introduced himself, and well, the rest is history, And I went and saw Prabhupada for the first time with him up in New York, and so on and so forth. So that's how it all began. There was never any turning back. It was always moving forward into greater and greater connection with Krishna, and even to this very day. Once at Harvard, this is many years later, at Harvard, I had to take a Sanskrit exam. I was, one of my major areas was Sanskrit. And languages have never come easily to me. Some people, languages, easy, just learning. All of you are bilingual, at least, probably trilingual, quadruple lingual. I'm very jealous of all of you, okay? I've never had the privilege of being bilingual. So all of you have something over me that I wish I had. But anyway, so Sanskrit was a language I had to study deeply because I was becoming a textual scholar. And many of my published works involve translation. So it was so critical that I pass this exam and ace it, because if I didn't, the professor was so strict, he might have just gotten rid of me. So I had 5,000 flashcards that I was working with, vocabulary that I would study over a week or two amount of time. Harvard is extremely rigorous and tough. I don't know that there's any place more rigorous and tougher than Harvard. And I think they do that very intentionally there. They just have a reputation they want to keep. And so I was studying, and I was so nervous. I got to the classroom on Harvard campus where I was to take the exam, and a proctor, the professors don't come in, but there's a proctor who comes in, who's in charge of several exams being taken at once, and they watch over everyone very strictly. And I got there early, and she came in and she said, oh, you're here early, because no one else was there. I was just so nervous about being there on time. I got there an hour earlier. Well, she got up everything, and she said, oh, what course are you here for? What exam are you here for? And I said, Sanskrit. She said, "Oh, Sanskrit. Wow." She said, "The only Sanskrit I know is Hare Krishna." I said, "Wow." I completely relaxed. And I aced the exam. I mean, this whole time I looked at it as something mechanical and something I had to just, you know, plow and away at and torture myself. And suddenly she said, "The only Sanskrit I know is Hare Krishna." What would be the likelihood of that happening? So I took this as a great blessing. I mean, just how Krishna works through others, unwittingly, unknowingly, to lift us up into greater and greater seva. So that was a very long response to, did I ever have any doubts? Did I ever, sort of backpedal? Did I ever? No. Always forward moving, even during that exam at Harvard. The only Sanskrit I know is Hare Krishna. Wow. Okay. Do we still have time here? Are we still good with time? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let me take the two other hands that are up. Yes, please go ahead. How do you say your name? Uh, the second part is Harani, but what's the first?
It's Hare Krishna Prabhuji, it's Gitika Harani.
Jai. Oh, I see Gittiga. How
Gitika.
do you say? How do you say?
Gitika.
Gittika. Okay,
Yes.
very good. And Harani.
Hare
Yeah,
Krishna
very good.
Prabhuji.
My pronouns.
Please accept my reverence and take it sweet. Prabhuji, I want to ask something. I don't
Yeah.
know if I should or not, but I am asking that. Do you give initiation?
I'm
Do you
sorry.
give initiation?
Ah,
Do you give initiation?
okay. I have about 15 disciples. But what you need to know about me is I'm a little bit of a rebel. I don't, even though my godbrothers have tried to get me to conform to the ISKCON system, I have repeatedly said to them that guru is not an institutional word, it is a relationship word. And I have refused to be put on their list, and I never had any ambition to have disciples. But one day, and over the years, people have asked me, do you offer initiation, so on and so forth. And I said, I'm not on the list. Go to ISKCON's list, and there are many wonderful god brothers of mine. At that time, there were no god sisters. There's now one god sister of mine. But I said, go to the list, and but I said, Krishna, he will make it clear to you when you have guru. So I used to send people away because they didn't really know me that well. I guess I was well known at one level, but I did not have a personal relationship with them. So I never really accepted. Anyway, about 14 years ago, I came to know one devotee who came west. He was raised in New Delhi. He came west to study at the University of Virginia. I'm here in Virginia, and I gave lectures out at the University of Virginia. He got to know me. He was consulting with me about his educational future. He just loved everything that I would be speaking about. And finally, he said, Garuda Prabhu, I've been seeking a guru for many years. Many of your godbrothers I find wonderful. I've listened to so many. I've gone around the world. I traveled a lot. but I realized you're the only one for me. And I said, well, I don't really do that. I'm not, technically authorized by ISKCON. So he said, I'm going to wait until you give me initiation. What do I have to do to become qualified? So we went through this whole rigmarole. Anyway, several years later, I acquiesced. I said, okay. So I initiated him. And then others came and wanted initiation. They went through the same process. They had a relationship with me that they appreciated the uniqueness of my work, and they pursued me. And I'm a little sloppy about this, because one disciple I have, he was waiting 5 years. He said, Garuda Prabhu, I've been waiting 5 years for you to notice me. I said, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I'm a little up in my head because I'm writing so much. And so it's been, so I'm not very attentive to the whole idea of initiating others. Now, the governing body commission, GBC, they've called a meeting with me. They've had a meeting with me and asked me why I can't conform and just be part of their system. And I say, well, there are many reasons. One is I'm an academic, and I can't really be part of a system or an institution on which I am a scholar and an expert. So, I can't, that would not be good. I can't be a scholarly expert and be seen as someone who could be more objective if I am part of the very system itself. So that's one reason, but there are other reasons too. And the other reason is that I respect my God brothers. I love so many of my God brothers, mainly the older ones. I don't know a lot of the younger ones. But I love all of my God brothers. I love all of the devotees I meet in ISKCON. Whenever I travel, I go to the Bhaktivedanta Manor, I go to Los Angeles Temple, I go to the Boston Temple, the New York temples, and Prabhupada's the 26 Second Avenue, all over the place. All these devotees are so wonderful and sincere. So I see them so devoted to their gurus, and I bow down to all of them. And someone once interviewed me recently, what do I think about the Ritwiks? And I assume all of you are aware of what Ritwik is, right? So I said, look, let me just say this. I'm personal friends with Madhu Pandit in Bangalore, and I've stayed with him up in Vrindavan. I cannot subscribe to that system either. See, guru is not a system, it's not a system word. It is a relationship word. So Madhu Pandit, even though he is the head leading Ritwik of the world, I stayed with him for 3 days in his room with him. He respects what I'm doing. He appreciates it. And I'm a little different than a lot of my God brothers. I don't accept lavish, extravagant worship. For me, worship is about sweet connection in dialogue and in seva. And I don't accept Guru Dakshin. So I'm a maverick. I'm a little bit of a rebel, but yet everyone in ISKCON accepts me, and even people in the Ritwik community accept me, and people in the Narayan Maharaj community accept me because I also interact with them. I just don't limit bhakti. Bhakti is absolute. I bow down to anybody who takes up a life of Krishna bhakti, however way it came about. Ritwik system, ISKCON guru system, independent, system or non-system, whatever. Other gurus, whatever. I bow down to all of them. So, to answer your question, yes, I accept disciples, and we do go on retreats once a year. I do have a weekly podcast, but very closed, only for at least very close friends, a few very close friends. We keep it small to around 15 or 16 devotees. And every week I read from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and every week we discuss a difficult question that someone may have. So that's been going on for 10 years. There are over 400 lectures that have been recorded from that time. So, I have a little carved out. Think of me as being in a little cave.
Hare
I'm in a
Krishna.
little cave. Yeah.
Will you accept me as a disciple?
I'm sorry?
Will you accept me as a disciple?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I would have to get to know you. I would have to find more about you. I'd have to see whether you understand what I teach and how I teach. And
Yeah,
you'd have to convince me. You see, that's the problem with me. Other God brothers of mine are ready to accept disciples in a heartbeat. I am the reluctant initiator. So you'd have to, I'm horrible with this. I really am. I'm terrible. I make it so difficult. So, that would be a matter of whether there was a relationship there or not, and whether I could really be someone who could lift you up in your spiritual life. I'd
yes.
have to see whether I could do that.
Yes. I
But thank
don't
you for
know
your,
what
I'm sorry?
I don't know what to say.
You don't know what to say? Oh, well, I think we've had a nice conversation here, and I do appreciate your inquiring about these topics that can be for some people rather sensitive. To me, it's not a sensitive topic. I've been teaching, all my life in Krishna Bhakti. And now, I teach at the university. I teach at 2 universities, and I'm very spoiled. What do I teach when I go to the university? Bhagavad Gita. I have to teach a class this afternoon. What am I going to teach? Bhagavad Gita. Other classes I teach yoga philosophy. I teach courses on sacred texts of classical India. So, and I get paid. So I'm very spoiled. I'm very spoiled. My friends don't think I have a job. I only go in to teach for about 6 hours a week to the institution. Most of the time I'm at home, I'm writing, I'm reading, I've got my sadhana, I've got my wonderful wife who's just an absolutely delightful Bhaktin. I learned from her. She edits my books. I have a whole paragraph in here about her contribution to this book, along with a paragraph on Prabhupada. The first paragraph is on Prabhupada in the acknowledgments, and then the last paragraph is all about her and her contribution. So, we're and we really mother and father any students that come to us. And so it's a nice, sweet little family, a little sangha that we've got. So thank you. Thank you for your inquiries.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
And then we
so
have
much.
Achintya Kamala Devidasi. Is she here? Oh,
Hare Krishna,
there.
Sarji Dharma Pranam. Please
My
accept my
pranams.
humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hi, Prabhupada. Yes.
Sarji, I just want to know how you met Srila Prabhupada and what qualities inspired you a lot of Srila Prabhupada. And what is your favorite time when you spend with Srila Prabhupada?
Well, okay. So what I found in Prabhupada was a person with an extraordinary reach into sacred texts. Now remember, I had met all of these teachers coming over from India to the West. that established, wonderful ashram communities, and they had, brought quite a bit over, but no one had this extraordinary reach into sacred texts and illuminated the power of Krishna's energies and how they envelop us. Krishna's call, his love call to all of us. Prabhupada brought that. I felt so powerfully from Prabhupada the way he was part of Krishna's love call, and how Prabhupada called all of us to return the call. When someone calls and doesn't answer the phone, you leave a message. Well, Krishna's been calling all of us, but we don't answer, so he's left a message. And that message is the Bhagavata Purana. It's the Bhagavad Gita. So, and then it's the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, he has called us over and over, and he's left message after message after message, and those are the sacred texts. Once we get the message, then it makes sense that we would only return the call. So I'm trying to return the call. That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah, you can spend a whole life trying to return the call, but it's worthwhile. Yeah. Sometimes I can't get a friend back on the phone. I try to call them. I'll do that a few times, but I won't spend my whole life doing that. For Krishna's call, yes, I will spend my whole life doing that. So I can't think of any one particular time. I remember a very awkward moment with Prabhupada that was thrilling as it was awkward. Back at the Chandrodaya Mandir in Mayapur, like I said, there were only like 12 or 15 people attending Bhagavatam class while everyone else was sick. Well, I decided to take my camera and take pictures of the deities that were open. The altar was open. And it was all the way across the temple room. It was a large room that Chandrodaya Mandir has on the first floor. And suddenly Prabhupada decided to end class. And it was a shorter class. And so Prabhupada gets off the Vyasasana, and he comes walking toward the deities, which he would always do, to offer obeisance. And I kept taking pictures of Prabhupada as he was walking toward the altar, which I was right at the edge of. And I stupidly didn't get out of the way to let Prabhupada be most immediately and uninterruptedly, offering obeisance to the deities. But Prabhupada got down next to me, and I'm offering obeisances with Prabhupada offering obeisances, and his shoulder is touching my shoulder. And I'm just in ecstasy, and I'm in total embarrassment at the same time. So this is one of those freakish moments that I experienced during that visit. But other times, I just enjoyed sitting at Prabhupada's desk, just hearing Prabhupada. I didn't ask anything. The devotees would ask sometimes really good questions, but a lot of times the devotees would ask questions just for the sake of asking questions. I just felt I didn't feel qualified to ask any questions. So I only sat next to Prabhupada, or sat with Prabhupada, or attended Prabhupada in his room and just listened. Shravanam, just Shravanam, while he was Kirtanam, while he was teaching. And that was my relationship with Prabhupada. I hope that is a good enough response.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. What about Krishna Priya Sri Radha? Okay, there we go. What a beautiful collection of amazing Sanskrit names. Okay, good.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Okay.
Please accept the humble obeisances. Prabhu, I have a question I want to ask you. What
Yes.
kept you you have said, you have mentioned that one blessing of Srila Prabhupada, which he sent you through Satrup Maharaj in a letter, that I'm pleased with your work. And with just that one instruction, you understood that I have to preach. So what kept you so much enthusiastically follow the instruction of your guru? Even though you are living so far from him, living in this Western culture,
Mm,
speaking on from my side, we don't get that much association from our Guru Maharaj, sitting
mm.
in front of him and just listening him continuously, as you did with Srila Prabhupada, and then you came to the Western world. So what kept you that much enthusiastically followed the instruction of Guru Maharaj? And one more thing, have you ever faced any kind of challenging which forced you, which made a hurdle to embrace Krishna consciousness? Because sometimes our anarthas are that much high, which lead us to sometimes we forget the instruction of our Guru Maharaj, but you
No.
followed it enthusiastically. So I want to ask, what kept you that much enthusiastically followed it?
Yes, yes. Well, the instruction of the spiritual master is the life and soul of a devotee, as Prabhupada has mentioned. And, I didn't get into all of the details, but Rupanuga Prabhu at the time wrote to Prabhupada about me in the last letter he would ever write to Prabhupada. He received 100 letters from Prabhupada. He was one of the 26 Second Avenue devotees. He wrote therefore 101 letters. The last letter, for which he did not receive a response, except that inspired Prabhupada to come west, but he couldn't make it further than England because of his health. But in that letter, Rupanuga, so the last letter Prabhupada read from Rupanuga, a very, very close disciple, was about me, about how I was on my way to Harvard University to um, uh, tackle the Christian monopoly on the theology, in the field of theology, that they dominated theology with their vision, their sacred vision, and which is wonderful. Nothing wrong in doing that, but I was to go there, as Rupanuga said, to bring the treasures of Krishna bhakti theology, of which they knew very little. And that was my mission. So he described my mission. This is on my website. If you go to garudadas.com, you can see what Rupanuga wrote. And anyway, I have a disciple doing the website, so I'm not exactly sure what's on there, but I think that is on there. So what's kept me, and have there been challenges? Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Challenges along the way in all kinds of ways, personally, academically, but every bit of the way, I stuck with it, no matter what. And why? Because it became a passion, a mission for me to take up the pioneering work that I did. See, no one had ever gone back into academics as a bhakta. The few devotees who came to Prabhupada with academic degrees, they practically already finished their doctorates, and it was a done deal. But no one went back into the academic world with the explicit mission to establish the Vaishnava studies as a field of knowledge. Vaishnava studies as a field of knowledge. And so this was my pioneering work. Hridayananda Maharaj, with whom I'm good friends, he calls me the pioneer because this is how it all began, this kind of work. And Prabhupada appreciated the endorsements from academic scholars, of which he got dozens and dozens and dozens for his own work. So it was about time that we became, one of us became a scholar on our own tradition. And that's the road that I tried to pave, and I did it, relentlessly, without hesitation. I think that was feeling Guru's grace in all of this and the miraculous things. You asked me what kept me going. The miracles all along the way. Whenever anything got tough, the miracles along the way were extraordinary. And that's Guru Kripa. Guru Kripa. Krishna Kripa. Krishna Anugraha. You know, it's
Thank
I have to say I'm pretty spoiled. I mean, I'm just Krishna. He knew when I needed a miracle. Uh, the funny thing is that a miracle is not more a miracle than every day of seva. But sometimes Krishna to make it so obvious because of Dull, Dr. Dull over here, that he put something so obvious like that proctor saying the only Sanskrit I know is Hare Krishna. I mean, what is the likelihood of anyone saying something like that at Harvard? None. So that's what kept me going.
thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you. Jaya Tulsi Devi Dasi. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I want to ask, how can we have access to your recorded lectures and all? Like, I have heard I have heard you in few of the podcasts, like with Chaitanya Charan Prabhu and Namra's podcast. So
Yes.
it has helped me so much in my understanding, like understanding things more, like that Shukabik. I just love that concept of Shukabik and all. So I just want to hear more from you. How can we have access? Like, there are not much lectures of yours on YouTube. Not much. I have searched so much.
Yeah.
So can you tell that?
Yeah, I tend to shy away from being very, very public. I like a more private sangha, and so I'm a little bit tough, but in that regard. But if you go to that website, Garuda Das without an A at the end, garudadas.com, you will see all kinds of available lectures that you may not be able to find in a search. You will also find all kinds of writings, like articles and things. And if you get really, I can't imagine that you would want more, but if you want more, then you write in on the contact page to well, my disciple's name is Premananda Vilas. You could write to him in the contact portion and say, do you have more? Because sometimes he doesn't finish updating everything. So I think that's the best way to go about it. Start with garudadas.com. And of course, then the books. There are the books. I don't know how easy it is for you to get the books over there, but Oxford University presses all over the world, HarperCollins all over the world. Um, um, Columbia, I'm not sure about, but anyway.
Okay,
Or
thank you. Thank you so
or
much.
you can write to me and tell me that you've worn out everything that's available and that you want more. Okay, then I'll figure something out.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you for your interest, though. Thank you. Pranams. Pranams. And we've got Ria. Is that
Hare
right?
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, I want to ask that in my normal life, I always get difficulty in managing my spiritual life. So, how can I balance these both lives?
So you're talking about your spiritual life and then your everyday sort of work life? Is that what, am I hearing you
Yes.
correctly? Okay. Yeah. Our Prabhupada says our Krishna consciousness movement is not a religion. It is a process of purifying the heart. Insofar as we undergo the spiritual process of purifying our hearts, then in our everyday life, we are given opportunities to exercise that heart and the purity of our heart and the energy of our hearts extending to others. So our everyday lives are there to give us an opportunity to extend our hearts to others, even surreptitiously, even incognito. Even a person may not know that you're extending the heart of a bhakta to others, to another person. Your own kindness and affection for others, Krishna comes and works through that. This is our powerful process. It's a process of purifying our hearts. Why? So we can connect more deeply with the hearts of others. In effect, we worship ideally at the altar of other persons' hearts. Krishna resides there in their hearts. They may not know that, but he's there. So this is an opportunity to visit another temple. But you can only do that insofar as you have visited your own inborn temple within. So this is the exercise. Go within, like Arjuna was instructed, be a yogi, Krishna says. Go within and then come back out into the outer world. And if Arjuna can handle a war, I think we can handle our little battlefields too. Is that okay?
Okay, Prabhuji. Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay, good. Sure. And we've got Raki. Hare Krishna. You're on mute. Okay, there we go.
Yes, yes. Hare Krishna. Dandar
Hare
Pranam.
Krishna. My
Prabhuji,
pleasure.
I want to ask that I have heard some stories and I have read some stories about bhakts that have done the prescribed duty, as Krishna says to Arjun, that do the prescribed duty. So Krishna is pleased by them, very much pleased by them, who do the prescribed duty by their heart, honestly. So what are your thoughts about this? And if they are not doing the proper rule and rules and regulations, like in ISKCON that we have 16 rounds and so many rules that perform the RT and all these things. And I have heard these kinds of bugs that they have only performed their prescribed duty honestly by heart. So what are your thoughts about it?
Okay, I'm not okay. Your voice was breaking up quite a bit, but does anyone else have a complete sense of Raki's question?
Prabhuji,
Yeah,
is it clear now?
yeah, I
Yes.
can hear now.
I want to ask, yes,
Oh,
that I
okay,
want to
good.
ask that I have heard some stories of bhakts and read also that if someone is doing his prescribed duty according as Krishna is saying Arjuna to do his prescribed duty, and Krishna is pleased by them, so much pleased by them who is doing their duty honestly. So, what are your thoughts about that? That we should go for rules and regulations very strictly, or just doing by our duty honestly, which are prescribed as a wife, as a homemaker. So, what are your thoughts about it?
Yes. Now, sometimes devotees are really plagued by fulfilling all of the disciplined practices of Vaidhi Bhakti and Sadhana Bhakti, and then their regular worldly duties that also need to be fulfilled, and so on. And this is where guru is so important, a guide. Now, if one has a guru that is very distant, and not available, well, guru is not limited to simply one's diksha guru. There are shiksha gurus, there are guides, and it's important that we connect with our guides on our spiritual lives. Sometimes, the process has to be customized due to particular circumstances and situations. And it's about balance. It's about balance. And Prabhupada gave the strict, formula. 4 regulator principles, 16 rounds, period. Okay. Now, in his personal interactions with devotees, sometimes that would have to be modified in terms of devotees going overseas, doing so much work for him. Rounds may have been a struggle to strictly come up with those rounds. Personally, I teach devotees that quality is more important than quantity, although ideally, you have both. But chanting carelessly by doing something else at the same time, to me, is not acceptable. When you sit with the holy names, as your japa dhyana, then that needs to be really quality oriented. Now, Mahaprabhu Gauranga says there are no hard and fast rules for chanting, so you can chant anywhere and at any time. And I encourage everyone to do that. But there are times when your chanting is part of your sadhana and the japa dhyana, and that's different than going to work and then having the Maha Mantra playing in the back of your mind and within your heart. So this is where a guide, a shiksha guide, is so important in your life. And I have an expression that says it's direction that we're after, not perfection. So we may not perfectly execute the formulas that we have in Krishna Bhakti, but as long as we're going in the right direction, that is key. So if one is struggling because, say, someone gives birth to a new child, an infant, this is a very difficult time for a mother to undergo strict sadhana. But as long as she's chanting to the child and she's blissfully, hearing kirtan in the background and she's singing to the child and so on, so that's an instance in which sadhana would be modified and customized for that particular circumstance. And yet there's still such full Krishna Bhakti there. So again, guidance from experienced bhaktas is extremely important.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you so much.
yeah. So just quickly, a formula may be there, but a personalized and customizable customizing of that formula sometimes takes place because it's about supporting one's life in Krishna Bhakti, no matter what. Thank you. And finally, we have Hari Priya Radha Devidasi. Beautiful name. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances.
My pranams.
I want to ask, based on your realization and experience, could you share, what you believe is the key to effectively studying or deepening one's understanding of Krishna consciousness, or being steady in this journey of Krishna consciousness? There are 2 questions. Just ask them.
So how do we go more deeply into our Krishna consciousness. Is that what I'm hearing?
Effectively studying or like deepening our understanding of Krishna consciousness.
Okay, yeah. Study is very important. Even when you're so busy, just take 5 minutes and read, have the Bhagavad Gita by your bedside. Right before you go to sleep is also a very good time, because chances are you could be dreaming about what you've just read. So that's very powerful. To conduct a kind of regular study is, I think, important. Excuse me. But make sure that you're really finding what most nourishes you. Like, I have certain places in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, no matter how crazy things get, no matter how weird things get in my outside world, I can go to the Chaitanya Charitamrita and always be uplifted. And there are certain verses that I keep memorized, and that I suggest others find, your best friends in the Bhagavad Gita. What verses inspire you the most? I mean, just to be able to rattle off certain verses at key times. One who sees me everywhere and sees all things in me, to such a person I am never lost, nor is such a person ever lost to me. To recite such loving words from Krishna, what is better than that? What can soothe the soul more than that? What about Krishna's the ultimate statement that Krishna makes in the Gita? Sarva guyatamam bhuya shrinu me paramang vachaha ishtosi me dhritam iti tato vikshami teyatam. The greatest secret of all, please hear again. It is my supreme message. And what is that message? You are so much loved by me. Ishtosi me dhritam. Go to the Gita, find your best friends, write these verses down on a little card, both Sanskrit and English, or just English, or whatever, or Urdu. Write it down in Urdu, whatever language works for you, and keep that close to you, and always go back to it. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate. I mean, keep these verses close to your heart and always think about these throughout the day. This would even have been a good response to the earlier question about how do I, work my inner devotional life with my outer world life. Well, that's a way to take your inner life out into the world. Take Krishna with you. Take his verses with you. But push me further, Haripriya Radha. Did I respond fully, or did I need to cover something else?
Yes, Prabhuji, you responded very beautifully. Like, it's as per our, we read on a daily basis, but sometimes we feel like we are only reading, we are gaining nothing. But the way you beautifully explained that thing, we see that those verses as our best friends, and just quote some of the verses and
Yes.
keep them in our heart. So it's very, very beautiful.
Okay, good. I mean, look, for example, everyone here in this Zoom call, they're not all your best friends. I'm sure they're very wonderful bhaktas, but there'll be certain bhaktas here that you will connect with especially deeply. So in the same way with the verses of the Bhagavad Gita, it's all right to say, well, this is an intriguing verse. This is an interesting verse. I hope to understand it more later on. But then when you hit a verse that is so beautiful to you, is so sweet and powerful, that is what you need to take with you. Don't just notice it as the most beautiful verse that you've read in weeks. Take it and run with it. It really works. It really does. Make Krishna as much of a friend as he is to Arjuna. Thank you. Hari Priya Radha Devi Dasi.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Devaka. Hare Krishna. I can't hear you. You must be on some kind of muted.
Hare Krishna.
There. Now you have emerged. Yes.
Now, I wanted to ask that when you were in your starting period of the Krishna consciousness and being academically so rich, how you used to manage your time and your schedule while performing simultaneously services, spiritual life, even till now, being academically so rich. I wanted to ask that.
Yeah. I mean, look, the academic life is not an easy life. I'm sure all of you know this. It's even when Prabhupada attended Scottish Church College, he put his deities to sleep. He couldn't take care of his deities. One's studies takes the foreground, and it's hard. The academic life is not easy. It is not easy. But always keep a connection with Krishna through chanting some japa, and of course, if you've taken the vow, you need to work with guides on how to, perhaps adjust things for a time, whatever. But the point is this: no matter what, surround yourself with beautiful kirtan playing in the background, or beautiful pictures, beautiful paintings of Krishna. Make sure that you have, Krishna. My wife and I purchased the original of this, and we have a large, the large original painting down in our temple room. It's one of the most exquisite and most beautiful pieces of art I've ever seen in my life, and we have it right down there. And so surround yourself. What are the 5 most important principles that Rupa Goswami espouses after he gives all these lists of things that we're supposed to do, all these different lists? He boils it down to 5 things, right? Sadhu Sangha, okay, Bhagavata Seva, Japa, worship of Tulsi or the deity, and living in a place such as Mathura. Well, living in a place like Mathura means you surround your surroundings are filled with things of Krishna, beautiful paintings, music. That's Mathura. That's Mathura. Reading the Bhagavata, yes, attending the Bhagavata, that's of course important. Some worship, some deity worship, maybe some or Tulsi worship. Those are interchangeable in this list. But the most important one of these is Sadhu Sangha. And Sadhu Sangha can be translated in Sanskrit as a Tatpurusha Samasa. Those of you who know Sanskrit. Tatpurusha Samasa, where the second item modifies the first. The coming together with sadhus. Okay. But it can be also defined as a Karmadarya Samasa, which means that the first item describes the second item. So sadhu, in this sense, means not the person, but perfect. Sadhu means perfect. Perfect coming together with just the right devotees. This is essential. So of the 5, I would proffer that Sadhu Sangha is the most important. The steps on the way to achieving prema first begins ado shraddha. First, there is the matter of the heart. That is your faith, where you place the heart. Shraddha means in Sanskrit where you place your heart. That is faith. So first, your heart is opening up. But what comes second? Tata sadhusanga. Tata sadhusanga. That, without that, you can't go further. With that, you go further to bhajana kriya, sacred acts that are loving acts that are performed, and ultimately initiation and a fuller life of Krishna bhakti. But sadhu sangha, just the right connections, just the right coming together with other devotees. That includes, peers, that includes shiksha, diksha. Be sure that you are surrounding yourself with just the right bhaktas. Essential. Thank you for that. Hare Krishna. Well, I think we've gone on so long. It's got to be so late over there for all of you. I really didn't mean to keep all of you up so late. So all of you should go to sleep. Read a little Bhagavad Gita though first, okay, and then go to sleep. But I want to thank. Where's my host here? Where did she go?
Krishna Priya, go ahead.
Yeah, Krishna
Yes,
Priya.
yes,
Are you there? Well, I can't
yes,
see you.
Prabhu.
Okay, there's so many people here. I can't even find you, but that's fine. Anyway, I do want to thank you for the opportunity to be with all of you
Prabhu,
today.
it's all because of Bimla Prasad Das. He is our main host,
Oh,
and
okay.
he's
Okay.
Just, probably it's like he's accepting humble businesses,
Oh,
Mr. Prabhupada,
oh,
and
that's phenomenal. Yeah.
it is a lifetime opportunity for us to hear from you. It's a lifetime opportunity to hear from you. That's why, because like here in Pakistan, we generally do not get that kind of association, or better yet, I should say, any kind of association. So, yeah, I mean, it's not late for us. It's like can go on and on and on. We are here like Swadu Swadu Pade Pade. We are like listening.
Yes, very nice. Swadu. Yeah,
Swadu
nice.
Pade.
Very nice.
It's phenomenal to have your association, Rosie. Please give us your blessings so that we can all gradually advance in Krishna consciousness. Like be very, very strong in our philosophy. It's what we are looking for with this program of Bhakti Shastri. This is like a new, it's a new attempt in that sense. So.
Oh, well, nice. Well, I thank you for the opportunity to be with all of you and to meet all of you. It's a thrill for me. So I'm happy to serve, and we can do this again sometime.
Joy, I would take this opportunity if it's not like very brazen. I think it might be very brazen.
No, be brazen. I like that. Be brazen. I like that. It's good.
Brazen to invite you to Pakistan. It's like, please, like, you'll be brazen to invite you to Pakistan.
Well, that's a little more brazen than I thought you were going to be. Wow,
I'm saying, yeah, it like apparently it like the kind of propaganda which there. See, I am sitting here in India, so then like I went to Pakistan last year, so like contrary to how it seems to be, but in Pakistan it's actually a very thriving community here and. Yes, Prabhuji, the whole community is very thriving, and there are two temples coming up of ISKCON right away, right now as we speak. Yeah, so there's like the third is in the planning. So in one sense, contrary to what we hear in the media, it's actually the other way around. So
is that right?
In some ways, I would say personally, in some ways, I would say it's better than India. Because the devotees, they are not institutionally corrupt yet.
Yeah. Interesting. So, very interesting.
If you I can have your sangha, certainly.
Well, my wife and I were in Vrindavan last December. We were flown over to India in business class tickets, if you can believe that. We never fly business class. We were flown over by a very elite group of wealthy business persons in Jaipur. And they hosted us, and we came there in December, and then we went on to Vrindavan after Jaipur. And so we have been recently, but there is a reason why I may need to come over to India again soon, because the TOVP, everyone knows what the Temple of the Vedic Planetarium is all about, right, in Mayapur. So the executive committee, they've finished over 3 years or so the scientific portions with many PhD devotees in science and so on. But they got to the 4th level and they said, this requires a theologian. And they said, we're not theologians. So they looked around the world, where is the theologian who could really do this? And they chose me. So I'm supposed to design the ultimate theological focal point of the whole TOVP. And so I've been doing that as of about a couple of months ago. And I've completely turned upside down what they were planning. It was not, I won't go into it now, but it was not very good. Okay, in deference to my devotional colleagues, they tried, but it was not adequate. But we have to make sure that people coming to Mayapur leave with the ultimate message of Krishna Bhakti. And what that ultimate message is, well, I will save that for next time we meet.
Yes, you saved something for next time, and that gives us an excuse to again bother you, and please be very gracious towards us.
Pakistan.
So yes, that's what I would say. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bimala Prasad ji. Thank you. And thanks all glories to all of you and to Srila Prabhupada. And thank you so much for speaking so sweetly.
Garuda Kaviraj Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Krishna,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Stay in touch. Jai.
Prabhuji.
Stay in touch.
Sure.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.